I'm now speaking with Adrian Augier, who is in St. Lucia at the moment, and I would characterize him as a social activist. And but St. Lucia at this moment has attracted a lot of people with the victory of Julian Alfred. So you're in good company, Adrian, and welcome to our program.
Well, thank you very much, sir, and thank you for seeking me out. I appreciate it.
Tell us basically what do you do?
That's a wonderful question to begin with. So I am an economist by training, having studied development economics at University of Western Ontario and political science, double major. So my orientation has been development, from age 22. Worked with ministries of planning, Prime Minister's office, World Bank in Washington, D.C., and in various fora related pretty much directly to development. Um, Created and managed a lot of development projects, interventions by USAID, Caribbean Development Bank, OES, that sort of, those sort of
Right,
development
right,
projects.
right.
And I still consult in those fields. I would say, however, that my major interest at this point is really things that bridge the human development and the economic development spectrum. So I
Yeah.
find myself doing a lot of community stuff. I lecture, I write, I publish. I'm a poet.
Right, right, right,
So my range is human development. I would like to think,
right.
including inclusive of economic development.
Right, right, right. No, the way the young generation today, are you see them going in a right stead, a right direction with the challenges that we face, coming out of a pandemic and that sort of thing.
Well, it's a broad definition, the young people of today. I
Yeah,
mean, every day I meet um, energetic, bright, enthusiastic young people who are certainly getting it right and
yeah,
who are citizens of the world, and they're connected technologically to each other and to the things that interest them. And you might argue that that is your top 3, 4, 5% of the young population who are going to make it. They're always going to make it. They've had good beginnings. They've had strong education. They've had opportunity. They've traveled virtually or otherwise, and those we don't need to worry about so much. They will make it. They will do well. They already have the leadership opportunities and the qualities that the world requires of them.
right.
My concern is the able-bodied minds and the able bodies and minds who are not so included in the economic formula, in the development strategies that we have adopted in the Caribbean. I think somewhat arbitrarily, for want of a better word, arbitrarily. And I don't think that we are sufficiently focused on that world that we are creating for those young people and how they are going to navigate without the arsenal of what I consider to be, weapons and assets that we had as young people growing up, including a very strong sense of ourselves
Right.
and where we have come and the road we have traveled and the things we have achieved. So I would like to see the development formula being a lot more proactive about the engagement of young people, the involvement of young people, and then if you want to talk about governance and stuff like that, then
Right, right,
we can go there as well.
right, right,
But I don't think we're doing a very good job right now across the Caribbean of really making a better world for our next generation of
right,
citizens.
right.
I'm not convinced at this
Yeah.
point.
But it's a sad indictment. Do you feel that CARICOM has failed in itself as CARICOM, which leads to a lot of what you're saying?
I think, CARICOM, it's interesting that you should go there because I hold our regional agencies um, to account. And I think that you are right in pointing the conversation in that direction. I think that CARICOM in particular, but the other regional funding agencies or development agencies, I should say, are of a similar mode where they have pursued projects and funding and donors and even agendas which are not necessarily of their own making, not necessarily of our own making, not necessarily placing the Caribbean and the future Caribbean at the top of its list of priorities. And so I am very concerned, and I don't necessarily claim to have proof of this, but I'm very concerned that actually for people in other territories to decide, we're going to fund X or Y or Z this decade. And the Caribbean runs after it, whether it is a priority for us in our development strategy or not. In
Right.
fact, do we have a development strategy which really speaks to the fundamental development issues which continue to plague us, which is poverty, ignorance, disease, despair, governance, which is deteriorating in a lot of our territories, and even you might say the future of our democracies, which were
Right.
designed half a century ago, and which concept is under siege in many maturing democracies, including our own. So the big plan, the big picture, the next big thing for the Caribbean, driven by the Caribbean, does not seem very obvious to a vast number of citizens.
Right.
And
Right.
when you look at your academic results, for example, CXC passes, even the number of CXCs attempted by the average Caribbean student still in single digits when other and not high single digits either. Whereas other jurisdictions, other environments, other economies are challenging their young kids to 10, 12, 15, 13 CXCs. We are very happy with 5 and 6 and 7.
Right.
Our classroom size policy, our teacher instruction. One does not feel that there is a conscious strategy for advancing, and I would say even leapfrogging the Caribbean ahead of the international global agenda. And I find that very worrying because it's a kind of, lowest common denominator approach to our own development, which is not good enough.
Right. 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 Listen, I would love to continue talking to you much longer, but another situation has come up for us here, and which I have to attend.
Mm-hmm.
But in conclusion, I want to carry this further at another time. But in conclusion, where do you see us going? I mean, where do you see us going?
Well, literally, I see us migrating out of the Caribbean. Some of our brightest brains are finding the Caribbean to be a bit of a frustrating place to try and live, to try and grow, to try and dream. And if you have the moment, I would ask you to look up a recent article called Of Gold and Silver Linings. You should find it fairly easily if you do a Google search, something that I wrote on the occasion of the gold medal won by our top athlete, fastest woman in the world, Julian Alfred.
Right, right,
And it touches on those sorts of issues very briefly, very succinctly, as to,
right,
okay, what changes now? We've had this almost fluke wonder emerge from an unconscious environment, an unconscious policy environment, which is not producing global champions on any scale that you could consider strategic or transformative. So now that we have shown ourselves that we are capable of producing a gold medal at the Olympics, something that other countries have been doing for some time, what does it say to us about the things that need to change permanently? And as people, often say to me, well, St. Lucia has 2 Nobel laureates, the highest per capita number of laureates in the world. And I said, that is wonderful, but where is the third one coming from?
uh-huh.
And that's what I would like to discuss. Are
Okay.
we capable of producing another Nobel Prize? Or have we had 2 flukes in the last 50 years? But do we sustain an environment that produces that level of global excellence? And to me, that is the development agenda in a single statement right there. Yes, we got 1 gold medal at the Olympics. Can we get 2? Can we get 10? Can we do this every year or every 5 years?
Right.
What does Johnny down in the village really have to aspire to beyond the fleeting fantasy of this moment?
All
What
right.
has changed? Do we have one more sports scholarship? Do we have one more trained coach? Do we have one better sporting facility? Do we have a national program that produces champions in any discipline? These are the things I would like to see us engage big picture issues that tells us that St. Lucia and by extension the Caribbean is positioning for the future. What's the next big thing that we are going to focus on? Because we don't have time. We have limited resources. We have creeping poverty. We're taxing our people to death, and we can speak about that in a subsequent program if you want.
Sure.
And so the development potential of the region really needs to be harnessed as a matter of urgency. And that's what I would like to see more regional attention focused on, possibly in the form of a Caribbean Development Conference at the very least, at which we could have that sort of coordination between UE, CARICOM, the labor movement, the tourism sector, academia, and really try to, our central banks, for example, who are doing essentially what they've been doing for the last 50 years. How are we adapting, repositioning, and transforming for the years ahead? That's the conversation for the Caribbean.
Thank you very much, Adrian Augier. You take
Thank
care
you,
and
sir.
have a good day.
All right, that would be useful, sir. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Sure.
Don't forget to look up the article, or I could try and send you a
I
link.
will. I will.
Okay, all the best.
All right. I've been speaking with Adrian Augier, a social activist in the island of St. Lucia. This is Von Martin. Caribbeana continues.